Welcome to Buckets. This is Action Network's basketball betting podcast presented by FanDuel. This is the WNBA edition. We have episodes out every Tuesday and Friday. I'm your host, Maria Marino, joined once again by her Hoop Stats analyst, Dano Mataya at Dr. Mataya. I want to say on Twitter, but apparently it's on X now. I'm so not over it. But Dano, what's up?
Oh, man, just, catching back up on life after that amazing Liberty winning cover last night. There was never a doubt.
Amazing.
Got to like 7, before the fourth, and then Liberty start the fourth with a 7-0 run. Love that team so much. They really needed to step up with the little mini beef they have with Atlanta, and they took care of business. And we get to see them again play tonight. So tough schedule for them, honestly, this week.
It's actually the first back-to-back of the season for the Liberty. They're playing the Lynx tonight at 8 Eastern at home. And this is a makeup game from back on June 7th when we had those Canada wildfires that the smoke, we actually had to postpone the game here in New York. But before we talk about that game, you have a pick for it, just to be clear. But since you were in the building last night, you mentioned the Twitter beef. I know that Ryan Howard tweeted July 27th, which is obviously, in advance. That was the next meeting. She kind of seemed to struggle a little bit last night. I think she had 10 points?
4 for 15.
15? Mm-hmm. Or what was it?
Actually, it might have been 4 for 17. It was bad.
Yeah. And first of all, how about the Liberty social media getting a little fiery? And I saw on Instagram, they had that tweet from her, embedded with a photo at the end of the game of the team, celebrating. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is getting spicy.
I love it. It's good for engagement, and if the Libs would have lost, then Atlanta and Ryan Howard have the right to really talk all the best in the world. But I mean, that is what we want with a league that's growing. And social media teams doing their jobs. I don't think it's, callous or bad in any way. It's fun.
It definitely gets you talking, as we're doing right now.
Absolutely. They backed up their talk. Stewie definitely makes things a lot easier when she has 25 and 5 in the first half. 25, 5 and 5. Unreal.
Yeah. So she finished with 33 and 12. Jonquel Jones has been playing a lot better of late. She was the Eastern Conference Player of the Week. She had 19 and 13 last night. So the Libs end up beating Atlanta 95-84. I'm not sure exactly where the little mini beef was born out of. I know that the Dream upset the Liberty earlier in the season. I was at that game. You were at that game.
I was.
You actually picked the dog that night. You were a winner that evening. But I have to say, I don't know if this is me being at Barclays or has something to do with the jersey color, but I was in the building Tuesday against the Storm, which was huge sweat. They were down 18. They end up coming back and winning, but of course they did not cover. So when I have attended Liberty this season, the Seafoam, the Liberty are 0-3 ATS. Just throwing that out there. Maybe something to be mindful of moving forward.
But somewhat good games, though.
A great game.
The entertainment value's up there.
A great game, and I enjoyed it. That comeback was incredible. But I believe you and our friend Jim Turvey, who was on the pod with us Tuesday, things didn't quite go your way because you bet Libs in the first half. And funny enough, you like Libs in the first half tonight.
Yeah. I mean, if it doesn't work one time, I'm not going to go away from it. It was dynamite. It was dynamite yesterday. They are a fantastic team. Everyone knows that. The talent's there. There's 2 angles I love for this play tonight. I love it because, one, we have known Napheesa Collier, who started every game and it's been, the highest usage player. She's in MVP conversations, even though Minnesota is where they are in the standings. What she's been able to do this season has been nothing short of amazing. So not having her changes the entire outlook for this team. They've never started a game without her. And when you're dependent on rookies who like Diamond Miller and Dorka, who are really leaning on Fee, it's going to be a lot, or going to be very different and hard to adjust, in my opinion. The second thing is Liberty will play this game after playing on Tuesday night, on Thursday night. Today's Friday, play today. They have a 1 p.m. local start on Sunday in LA. So I really think rest is going to be huge tonight. I mean, any other situation, I'd take, Liberty to cover 14 points against a Minnesota team without Napheesa Collier. But with the schedule coming up, I do think we're going to see a lot of bench minutes in the second half, hopefully. I mean, I think if everything goes the way it should, Liberty should be able to cruise to a nice, double-digit first half lead. I think the spread is 8.5. So I'm comfortable laying those points. They should be up by more than 10. They were up by 15, I think, at half against the Dream last night. Could have been more had they been a little more crisper on offense. But the defense is what I really love from the Liberty lately.
I agree. The defense has been a lot more on point. But as far as the team offensively, they didn't cover in the first half the other night when I was there on Tuesday. And I really just think, like Sab, for instance, was just having trouble shooting the ball. So they've been a little bit inconsistent, but I still like that strategy of going with the first half because they've been more inconsistent in second halves of games. That's a really, really good point about the schedule, but it's more so for me, just their general inconsistency and, their up and down nature at times that makes me lean a little bit more toward that first half as well. Rather than the full game. And as you mentioned, Liberty are favored by 14.5, which is a big number. Although, to your point, I mean, Napheesa, anytime I have watched the Lynx this year, I'm just like, Napheesa is their entire offense. I mean, we had a game or two ago, like Dorka Juhas kind of broke out a little bit.
Oh, so awesome.
Which was amazing. As you know, I used to cover UConn. I love Dorka, so I'm so happy for her. And it's exciting to see her development. Diamond Miller, like to your point, super, she's confident. She's not afraid to attack. But like 9 times out of 10, Napheesa getting the ball and she is doing something with it. And people know that's what's going to happen and it doesn't matter. And she still, puts up numbers and produces. So just to clarify, she was injured in Wednesday's win over the Mystics.
Very end of the game.
Was it an ankle?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. So hopefully she won't miss too much time because,
for sure. She's amazing. She's been a joy to watch. But I'm with you. I definitely agree. There's a lot of fun pieces on this team, but like you said, they rely on Fee so heavily.
Yeah.
And you look at this team, I think against the Sparks, I was on 3.5. I got there late.
Yeah.
And they're up 18 with 4 to go in the third and end up being down 7. And I think it was Fee who finally got them out of a scoring drought with 7 straight points to pull them back ahead. And they end up winning a game, but not covering the 3.5. You don't have that tonight. It could get really ugly. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the Liberty cruised and covered, just based on players' availability. But this could also be one of those weird games where like Aerial Powers, a player who really hasn't been a factor, comes out and drops 40. Like she's capable of doing that. So it's I think 14 is still too much. So I'm sticking with the first half. Stick with my guns. Liberty want to have a nice, easy one before going all the way to LA. It's a long flight.
Definitely. I hear you on that. So real quick, we're going to get to the 2 other games on the slate tonight. But I was just curious as we were talking about Napheesa, because she's absolutely in the MVP conversation. She's not going to win it most likely because the Lynx they're just not good enough. I just checked. She's at plus 25,000 to win the MVP on FanDuel, which is fascinating. But that being said, I wanted to make the point as well that I hope they don't lose her for long, because they are in the playoff picture right now. They are seventh in the standings, for a team that we thought at the beginning of the season might be tanking just because how bad they started the season. They are right in the mix. And in that 8th spot and final playoff spot right now are the Chicago Sky. Just going to touch on this game real quick because I don't think you have a play on it. But the Storm are visiting the Sky at 8 Eastern on Ion. Sky are favored by 4.5. So the Sky have lost 5 of 6, but the one win was against Seattle, 90-75, not too long ago. Jewel Lloyd had not a great night, 12 points. Collier Copper tied her career high with 29. Is this a little bit of a revenge spot, you think, for the Storm and Jewel, or is it just Jewel because she's the only one capable or having the luxury to have a revenge spot type of game?
I was on Seattle that night, and that was absolutely miserable. I took them in the 4th live as well because of what we've seen from them in fourth quarters. I just think either team is super impossible to trust.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, you talk about Collier Copper tying her career high. Then I'm on Vegas, 12.5, and she goes off for 35.
Yep.
But then we've seen what Chicago does against teams that are not as good sometimes, and they're shelled themselves. They lost at Phoenix. I think just basically a blowout the entire game. So it's both teams extremely hard to trust.
Yes.
I don't hate, including like a Chicago money line in a parlay if you're feeling frisky on a Friday, right? But
yeah.
I think maybe that's a spot to look live if something gets to plus 9.5 or something where it's double digits. Right. My good friend Danny Barlavi said that Jewel Lloyd's favorite restaurant is Lou Malnati's in Chicago. So I think they put out there 30 plus points for Jewel Lloyd. I don't know what those odds are in FanDuel, but I would love to dig into that later today. If she likes to eat her food in Chicago, that's another good sign. Also the revenge game of the fact that she had like 12. I mean, a similar situation. She played really bad at New York. And we didn't cover the first time we played them. Next game out on Tuesday, she is, I think, 15 in the first half. She was unreal, hard to stop, but she was 1 for 11 in that second half, by the way, against New York. So she's right. She's been up and down.
Yeah. So a couple of points. One, this is the second time this week that Danny Barlavi has been shouted out on this podcast.
Love Danny.
That's a good sign. Secondly, let's just pull up her game log real quick. Yeah. So she had 32 at New York on Tuesday, but to your point, not as effective in the second half. Had 12 in back-to-back games before that, 31 before that, 39 before that.
Gosh.
And she's still leading the league in scoring at 24.7 per game. And I say all this to say, I just kind of caught my eye. FanDuel now has some of these fun bets available. Like, for instance, you can pick a player to score 25 plus. And they have like tiers, like to score 20 plus points or 15 plus points. But just saying, Jewel Lloyd to score 25 plus is at plus 106. It's a little risky, but it definitely caught my eye.
I mean, if we're being serious, I'll gladly take 35 at plus 920. I will definitely put a little sprinkle there. Little Friday fun day.
Yeah.
That's an ode to Danny. I mean, she's put up 39 a couple times this year. Hasn't scored 40 yet, but we're due. Or maybe she has. I don't know.
I think she scored. Yeah, I know she scored at least 39 once. But I did want to point out too, you're right. It's funny. I said that Copper tied her career high with 29. Yeah. So the next game she had 37 against the Aces, even though it ended up being kind of a blowout win for the Aces. But basically, I agree. Probably staying away from that game on the whole because these two teams are just too hard to predict. And going up against each other is just a weird matchup. But one more game to discuss also at 8 p.m. on Ion. The Mystics visiting the Wings. Wings are favored by 9.5. So look, I feel really bad for this Mystics team. They've lost 3 of 4. All of their stars, well, not all of them, but their main stars remain out. Shakira Austin, Elena Deladon, Ariel Atkins, Christy Tolliver, who we haven't even really gotten to see play this season.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because I feel like they, well, who knows? Maybe they'll get some key pieces back in time for the playoffs. But the Wings, meanwhile, had won 5 straight, including wins over New York and Vegas. But that was snapped Tuesday by Connecticut. Super impressive win for the Sun. Great game, like back and forth game.
Yeah.
But what is your take on this game tonight?
Oof. I mean, with these injuries that the Mystics have, there's a few angles to look at. The one that breaks out as an obvious winner to me, and I'm surprised this line hasn't moved much. I think it's only moved up half a point. I haven't launched on it yet. I wanted to wait for this pod. But I love the over here. 164.5. We're talking about a Wings team who, 1, definitely scores more at home, 2, loves to push the ball. Yeah. And with these injuries, the Mystics are putting up hella points on their own. Pace has increased. I think the over's hit 7 of their last 9. All of those without Shakira Austin and Elena Deladon. I think Ariel Atkins got hurt. I think 2 games into that 9-game stretch. So what we're seeing from the Mystics is a lot of Brittany Sykes, who's been fantastic, and Natasha Cloud.
Yeah.
Both of those are players are averaging basically close to 20 points a game. So I do like their point total overs if you're into playing props. Those have been really nice. I know Jim has been on those, Danny, Calvin.
Yes.
Shout out to all my people there.
Yes.
Those have been huge winners, but I love the over there. We know what Dallas can do in their offensive firepower, especially at home. 9.5 is a lot. And any team can do something special on any night. So I remember taking the Wings at 5.5 when they hosted the Mystics earlier this season and won by 15. They're just you never know. I think it's safer to play the over.
Yes.
I don't hate 9.5. I'll probably play the first half just in case, but the over is definitely my play.
I love it. And you shouted out one of our other co-hosts here on Buckets, Jim Turvey. And indeed, he did tweet about Sykes over 14.5 points. Now, that was a few hours ago, so it's probably different.
Yeah, 16.5 on FanDuel now, of course.
Yep. Now, another thing I was going to mention, when I checked the line earlier, it was Wings minus 8.5. Probably some money was coming in on that. So it's now up to 9.5, may end up getting higher. And I understand why. The Wings are home. They have been the much stronger team. But to your point about this Mystic squad, even shorthanded, they're dangerous. They're always well prepared. They always defend. They always put the effort in. And you and I experienced this firsthand last Friday because on Buckets, we took, or I don't even know if you ended up betting the full game spread, but I think you ended up going first half, but I went full game Liberty minus 8.5, and we just squeaked by and got it because we had a missed free throw at the end, which gave us some help. One or two people within the Action Network company may have gotten 9.5 and lost brutal. Out.
That foul.
Super brutal. Yeah, the foul at the end of the game was ridiculous. But the point being that the Liberty's just sometimes they're just inconsistent, but the Mystics just, they grind and they play.
They wouldn't die.
What was that?
They would not die.
Oh no, they would no, and they won't. And so that's why yet again, the full game spread, when you're starting to get you're inching toward double digits.
Yeah.
I could see why you would hesitate with that. But listen, this has been 20 minutes of pure bliss. We got some we got some picks out there. And it's going to be a fun Friday night in the WNBA. We'll be back next week on Buckets. Once again, episodes Tuesdays and Fridays. We are presented by FanDuel. Thank you so much for listening. And thank you once again to my special guest, Dano Mattia, for all the great insight and, again, just stellar conversation.
Absolutely. I'm glad you got to meet Ollie before our call.
I know.
We'll get him down the action office in person at one of these days.
Yes, I may have a photo that I will be sharing with Ollie's little cameo there before our recording. But once again, this was super fun. A reminder, if you haven't already, download the award-winning Action app. It's such a great tool. You can track your bets. You can see what the experts are picking and why. Also, feel free to rate and review this podcast. You could win Action swag or a free subscription to Action Pro. Let's get buckets.